I found a used rubber under our bed. We haven't used rubbers in over 2 years. Not since Lindsay switched to another method. That was our decision, together. Which means what I found that morning wasn't from us. And I hadn't been home for 4 days. I came back Thursday night from a routine work trip. Nothing special, just another stretch of highway and back-to-back hotel rooms. I walked in through the front door, and the first thing I noticed wasn't her hug. It was the smell. Not a bad smell. Just unfamiliar. Like someone else's cologne, subtle, but definitely not mine. Our daughter ran to me, arms wide, like she always does. Lindsay followed with a smile that looked staged. She hugged me, but too quickly. No warmth. Just politeness. Then I saw the bedroom. New sheets. Our pillows rearranged. A candle I'd never seen before flickering softly on the nightstand. Lavender. She hates lavender. I asked if she'd redecorated. She said she was just refreshing the vibe. Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. I let it go. I wanted to believe I was tired, overthinking. That night, I didn't sleep well. Not from jet lag, from something quieter. A feeling. A shift. The next morning, I reached under the bed to grab my charger. And that's when I found it. A used rubber. Rolled up in a tissue. Tucked just far enough behind the frame to feel careless or rushed. For a second, I just sat there staring at it in my hand. No words. No breath. My mind went completely still, like my brain couldn't decide which thought to panic over first. It wasn't a maybe. It wasn't a clue. It was proof. I walked to the kitchen, placed it on the table. She was pouring coffee. She turned, saw it, and didn't even flinch. She laughed, shrugged. Oh my God, really? That's probably ancient. You know I'm terrible at cleaning under there. I didn't respond. Because I knew. I knew it wasn't old. It wasn't misplaced. It wasn't forgotten. It was fresh, recent, left behind, and not by me. That night, she climbed into bed like nothing had happened, turned her back, fell asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, hearing nothing else but my own silence. Someone else had been here. He had been in my room, in our bed, close enough to know when I was gone, close enough to feel comfortable. And I had no idea who he was. But I was going to find out. Not by asking, not by accusing. I would observe, listen, watch. Because once someone lies to you with a straight face, you stop asking questions and start collecting answers. I didn't sleep much after that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. The bedroom felt contaminated, like something sacred had been quietly taken and no one told me. She woke up like nothing happened, poured coffee, made pancakes, kissed our daughter on the head, and I watched her. Every move, every glance, every word. I had no plan, just a feeling that I needed to slow down time and notice. That's when I started building the list. I didn't write it down, not at first. It started as a mental exercise, a way to keep my mind from spiraling. Who knew I was out of town? Who had access to our house? Who had she mentioned lately, even in passing? I went back weeks in my memory. Conversations. Casual mentions. There was her coworker Drew, the one she says is like a brother. He sends her memes late at night. I remember once she laughed at something on her phone and turned it away before I could see. Said it was nothing. Then there's our neighbor Ryan. He helped us fix the backyard fence last month. Stayed for dinner afterward. Seemed overly polite. I remembered him glancing at her while she poured wine. I didn't think much of it then. Now it loops in my head. There's also Jared, an old friend from college. She said they caught up for coffee a couple months back, just to reconnect. She showed me a photo he sent of their group from back in the day. I didn't even realize they'd stayed in touch. That was three. 3 men who, on the surface, meant nothing. But now, every detail was loud. I checked the calendar on the fridge. Looked for dates when she was out with friends or at yoga. Matched them against my travel schedule. Patterns started forming. Not perfect ones. Just enough to make my stomach twist. And then, the real trigger. She left her tablet unlocked. We don't snoop. That was always our unspoken rule. But rules stop applying when someone else breaks the biggest one. I didn't dive into her apps. I didn't dig too deep. I just checked her browser tabs. One stood out, private mode. And in her recent activity, search terms about how to clear shared location history and do AirPods track your phone. I didn't need more. She was hiding something. Someone. And now I had a list. I didn't know who it was yet, but I was going to find out. And I wasn't going to ask her. She already gave me her answer the moment she smiled at me like nothing happened. So I smiled back and started watching. There's this thing that happens when you start watching people differently They change without doing anything. Ryan, our next-door neighbor, had always been around. Friendly. Helpful. A good guy. He's the type who waves when he sees you park your car, who offers to mow your side of the lawn when he's doing his. The kind of guy who always smiles just a second too long. Before, I saw him as harmless. Now, I wasn't sure. He was home the entire time I was away. That much I knew. He works from home, some kind of tech consulting. He's always in gym shorts and t-shirts, always talking about how lucky he is not to have a boss. Lindsay mentioned him a few times. Said he'd helped her fix the gate, brought over some leftover barbecue. Small things. Friendly things. But now, they didn't feel small. I remembered something that hit differently now. The night before I left for that trip, I was packing in the living room. Lindsay had stepped outside to take the trash out, or so I thought. I'd heard low voices outside, assumed she was just saying hi to Ryan. But it lasted longer than it should have. When she came back in, her face was flushed. I asked if everything was okay. She said, yeah. Ryan was just asking about the garden. She wasn't holding any trash. It meant nothing then. Now it felt like a prelude. So I tested something. Saturday morning, I pretended to leave. Told Lindsay I had an early site visit. Took my car 2 blocks away and walked back home through the side yard. Quietly. Slowly. I waited by the fence. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then Ryan stepped out onto his back porch. He didn't look over. He just stood there. Like he was waiting for something. Or someone. He had a mug in his hand, and he looked too put together for a lazy weekend. Like he expected company. After a while, he went back inside. And I went back to my car. I didn't see them together. I didn't hear anything. But something about the way he moved. Calm, comfortable. It was the first time I looked at another man and felt something I couldn't explain. Like my gut was pointing at him and whispering, this one. But gut feelings aren't proof. So I did something I didn't think I'd ever do. I placed a small voice recorder in the laundry room, right behind the detergent shelf, where the room backs up to the garage wall. Why the laundry room? Because that's where she takes calls. Where she folds clothes with the door closed and her phone in hand. Where I've heard her laugh to herself, softly, when no one's around. I didn't want to hear anything. I hoped I was wrong, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. And that night, when I played back the first hour of recording, I heard her whisper a name. Soft. Quick. Like a reflex. She said, Ryan. I had the recorder in my hand, earbuds in, heart pounding. It was late. The house was dark, silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft clicks of the playback device. My daughter was asleep. Lindsay had gone to bed half an hour earlier, claiming a headache. I sat alone in the kitchen, listening. At first, it was nothing. Just the soft shifting of laundry, the rustle of clothing, the occasional sigh. I fast-forwarded. A few minutes later, I heard the creak of the door, then footsteps. Then her voice. Hey. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a video. It was her. In the laundry room. Talking to someone. Only one voice. Hers. But it wasn't how she talks to me. Her voice was softer. Warmer. She laughed. Low and breathy. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. Then the whisper. Ryan. My breath caught. I paused the recorder. I stared at the kitchen wall, at the family calendar filled with dentist appointments, school events, and meal plans. So ordinary. So painfully normal. I pressed play again. She said his name like it wasn't the first time. Like she had said it there before. Like she was used to saying it quietly. The rest of the audio was just as telling. I could hear the dryer spinning, some soft humming. I thought I heard her say something like, I missed this, but it was too faint to be certain. I sat there for a long time after it ended. Not moving. Not thinking. Just letting the silence of the kitchen swallow me. What was I supposed to do with this? It wasn't a full confession. It wasn't undeniable proof. But it was real. Her voice. Saying his name. In our home. In our laundry room. In the space where we folded our daughter's pajamas, where I had stood 100 times, joking with her, bumping shoulders as we did chores. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet. Whispered. Woven into the fabric of our life like a thread I hadn't noticed until it caught the light. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. The next morning, I acted normal. I poured cereal. Helped pack lunch. Walked my daughter to the bus stop. Lindsay kissed me goodbye on the cheek. Her lips brushed my skin like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. I couldn't look at Ryan the same. I couldn't look at her the same. I started noticing more. When she texted, her phone was tilted away from me. When I asked who it was, she always had an answer. Too quick. Too clean. Her laughs were too loud. Her explanations too polished. And Ryan? He avoided me now. Subtly. His timing was different. He used to wave when I pulled into the driveway. Now he was inside before I even parked. One evening, I watched through the blinds as Lindsay stood in our backyard texting. Then she looked up, glanced toward Ryan's house, and smiled. Not at me. At nothing and everything. I knew what I had to do next. I needed to see it. I needed more than whispers. So I bought a second recorder. This one had a better mic and more storage. I placed it in the garage, hidden behind an old toolbox. Lindsay used the garage often. It connected to the side door. It was private. Quiet. Then I waited. Days passed. I didn't bring it up. I didn't change. I let her believe I was still in the dark. And finally, one Thursday, when I came home from work, she wasn't there. She said she had gone for a walk. Needed air. Her usual route. But she came back flushed. Not from walking. I checked the recorder that night. She hadn't been walking. I heard the garage door open. I heard her humming again. Then another voice. Male. His words were muffled, but hers weren't. Did anyone see you? No, it's fine. A pause. Then, we can't keep doing this. But there was no conviction in her voice. Just tension. Familiarity. Want. She didn't push him away. She leaned in. There was silence, but the kind you feel. Close proximity. Movements. Clothing. Then the soft gasp. I stopped listening. That was enough. I sat in the dark again, like before. But this time, there was no shock. No numbness. Only confirmation. And a choice. What do you do when your worst suspicion becomes truth? Not an idea. Not a fear. But a fact. A recorded, undeniable, whispered truth. I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew I couldn't unknow it. And I knew this was only the beginning of what I was about to do. After I listened to that recording, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I simply sat still, letting the silence stretch, letting it fill every part of me that used to belong to trust. Because now I had something I hadn't had before. Not just proof. Power. It changes everything, you know? Knowing. Truly knowing. It doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives you a strange kind of clarity. Like fog lifting after weeks of wandering through it. I could finally see. And what I saw wasn't a woman who made a mistake. It was someone who'd made a choice. Repeatedly. Calmly. I started thinking like a different version of myself. Not the husband who asked. Not the man who begged for the truth. The one who listened. Who watched. Who planned. And my plan started simple. Say nothing. Change nothing. Let her keep thinking I was blind. Because people who think they have the upper hand, they get sloppy. They reveal themselves. And she was already doing that. The next morning, I told her she looked tired. She said she hadn't slept well. I told her I understood. I made her coffee just the way she likes it. I kissed her on the temple. She smiled like everything was normal. It was almost impressive. But I noticed she checked her phone before every reply. When I mentioned maybe going on a weekend trip as a family, she hesitated a second too long. Then said, "Let me check with my calendar." Her calendar. Not ours. I wrote it down. That night, I found a second recording app. One that could run silently on a phone. I installed it on an old device we had in the drawer, synced it to our Wi-Fi, and left it in the garage again. 2 more days passed. She got bolder. Ryan came by to borrow a rake. He hadn't spoken to me in weeks. Barely nodded. But when Lindsay walked him out, she lingered in the driveway. I watched from the upstairs window. They didn't touch. But the space between them, it was too small. Like gravity was doing more work than it should. That night, I played the garage audio. This time, I didn't stop it. They were laughing, whispering, making plans. I heard her say, "Next week, same time?" He said, "Unless your husband grows a brain." She laughed. She laughed like the joke wasn't cruel. Like it was deserved. And that was the moment I decided I wasn't going to react. I was going to record, document, collect. Everything. Every word. Every look. Every date. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. A quiet one. And I intended to win it. Not with rage. But with truth. Cold, undeniable truth. I started taking notes. I kept a journal on my phone under the name Grocery List. Each entry was a timestamp, a quote, a detail. She didn't notice. She was too busy living 2 lives. I watched her wear makeup on Tuesdays. She never used to. I noticed she started doing laundry twice a week instead of once. Clothes she never wore around me. And she'd hum when she thought she was alone. A little tune I hadn't heard before. I heard it in the garage recording, too. After she said goodbye to him. The same tune. One day, I followed her. Said I was working late. Instead, I drove to the park she said she was walking in. She wasn't there. But his car was parked near the back trail. That was the first time I felt the anger rise. Not because she was lying, but because she was doing it so easily, so confidently. Like our marriage was a costume she only wore when I was watching. I drove home. I didn't confront her. I made dinner. We watched a show. She laughed. I smiled and wrote down everything, because I knew the day was coming when I'd show her the truth. Not for closure, but for control. She had taken enough from me. Now I was taking it back, one quiet moment at a time. The hard part about knowing is pretending you don't. You wake up beside someone who betrayed you, and you make eggs. You help them zip their jacket. You wave as they drive off. You say, "I love you," out of habit, even though the words land flat. Because you're not ready. Not yet. You're still watching the pieces shift into place. But I was getting close. The night I heard Ryan mock me on that recording, something in me turned. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything. But a door inside me shut for good. No more sympathy. No more wondering if this was a phase or a mistake. No more maybes. I stopped waiting for a confession. She wasn't going to give me that. She didn't love me enough to tell me the truth. So I'd make sure the truth stood on its own. I bought a burner phone. A cheap one, cash only. I set it up to mirror the recordings from the garage and laundry room, so I could listen while at work. I became a student of her second life. It was disturbing how normal she sounded in those recordings. How easy it was for her to talk to Ryan, to laugh, to plan. She talked about me once. "He's been so calm lately," she said. "I think he suspects, but he hasn't said anything." Ryan replied, "Maybe he knows, and he's just too weak to leave." They both laughed. That was the laugh that burned. But I didn't break. Instead, I found an old voice memo from 2 years ago on my phone. It was of our daughter singing. Just her voice, off-key and joyful. I saved it as a ringtone. Every time I felt myself slipping, I played it. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about Emma. She deserved a father who didn't collapse under betrayal. She deserved to live in a house built on truth, not lies stacked like bricks. So I kept tracking. Thursday nights became their pattern. He'd come in through the side gate. She'd leave the kitchen light off, always the same. I marked the times, the days, the way she dressed. I tracked it all. Then I took it a step further. I bought a small camera, motion activated. I installed it in the garage high up, tucked behind a beam. Not perfect footage, but enough to match audio with movement. And the first time it triggered, seeing Ryan walk in, her meeting him in a hurry, their bodies too close. It stopped being theory. It became a file. I labeled it Thursday 7:32 p.m. Then another, Thursday 7:36 p.m. Each clip, each timestamp, another crack in the foundation she thought was unshakable. And the entire time, she kept smiling at me, kept bringing me coffee, kept asking about my day, like none of it existed, like she was still my wife. One night, she asked if I wanted to go on a short trip together, just the two of us. Said she missed us. I agreed. We booked a weekend in a cabin 3 hours away, but I wasn't going there to reconnect. I needed time to think, away from the house, away from her routines, somewhere quiet, without their shadows looming over every room. We left on a Friday. Emma stayed with my sister. Lindsay drove, played road trip playlists, sang along like it was any other couple's getaway. I watched her while she sang, not the way I used to watch her, not with admiration, but like you watch a stranger who knows your address. That night, in the cabin, she poured wine, sat next to me on the couch, said she felt reconnected, said she felt like we were healing. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to tell me. She paused, but only for a second. "No," she said. "Why?" I shook my head, just making sure we're being honest. She leaned her head on my shoulder, whispered, "Always." And I knew then, she would never tell me the truth. Not even if I begged. Not even if I bled. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe. I decided the next phase had to begin. No more collecting. It was time to show her the file. But not yet. First, I needed to make copies. I uploaded every video, every audio clip, every note to a secure cloud. Made a USB backup. Put it in a safe deposit box. Another copy went to a trusted friend, not for sharing, just for safety. Then I made a folder. I called it The Truth. And inside, I placed the entire story. 10 recordings. For video clips. 17 timestamps. 3 calendar screenshots, and one message to her. It read, "I know. I've known for a while. This is everything you never told me. Everything you thought you hid. I loved you enough to wait. But I respect myself enough to walk away. I didn't send it yet, but I would. Very soon. And when I did, I wanted to be somewhere else. Not in the kitchen. Not in the bedroom. Not under the same roof. Because when the truth landed, I didn't want to watch her try to lie through it. I wanted her to sit in silence. Just like I had. For weeks. And maybe then, she'd understand what betrayal really feels like. The folder was ready. Every detail, every recording, every clip lined up in order. Labeled. Clean. Cold. There was no rage in it. No emotional outbursts or accusations. Just facts. Truth, stripped of excuses. I kept it all stored in multiple places. I even mailed a copy to a P.O. box I had opened 2 towns over. Just in case. Maybe I was being paranoid, but this whole situation had taught me to trust actions, not intentions. Still, for all my planning, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Because betrayal doesn't wait for your perfect timing. It crashes in when you least expect it. It started with a text. I was at work, sitting through a routine team meeting, when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a notification from a friend I hadn't talked to in months. "Hey, is everything okay between you and Lindsay?" I stared at the screen for a long time. My response was simple. "Why do you ask?" His reply was almost immediate. "Just something I heard. Don't want to get involved, but maybe talk to Drew." He mentioned something weird. Drew. That was the name I had listed third in my mental file. Her coworker. The one she always called harmless. I hadn't considered him seriously in weeks. But now I had to. That night, I checked the footage and audio again. No Drew. Not once. Which made this worse. Because if there was someone else, someone besides Ryan. I wasn't prepared for that. And suddenly, the ground under me shifted again. I spent the next 2 days watching her even more carefully. Every smile. Every message. Every moment she spent on her phone. Something had changed. She seemed distracted. Less careful. One night, I asked her directly, "How's work?" She blinked, then said, "Busy." "Stressful." "Still working with Drew?" She nodded. "Yeah, he's fine." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering. You used to talk about him more." She laughed. "Yeah, well, he's kind of annoying lately." Something in her tone was off. That night, I checked her call log on our shared phone account. Not her phone, just the log. Just numbers. Drew's number was there. Late at night. Twice last week. Once at midnight. Once at 2:08 a.m. No more maybes. I didn't know if it was emotional or physical. Didn't matter. The rule had been broken again. It felt like discovering a second crack in a dam that was already leaking. And I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, overwhelmed. Not from the betrayal. From the scale of it. This wasn't just a one-time thing. Not just a single secret she kept. This was a life she had built on my blind trust. And I had no idea how deep it went. I thought I had the truth. I thought I was close to the end. But the truth was messier. Now I had to ask, how many lies had I missed? And how many more were coming? The next day, I took a drive during lunch. I didn't eat. I didn't call anyone. I parked near her office and just sat, staring at the building, watching faces come and go. I didn't expect to see anything. But I needed to be close to the places where the lies lived. I needed to remind myself that her world was bigger than the one she shared with me. At 12:47, I saw her come out of the building with Drew. They walked side by side, talking. It wasn't anything romantic, not overtly. But the way she smiled, the way she tilted her head when he spoke, it was familiar. Too familiar. They got into separate cars. No contact. No exchange. Just presence. It was enough to stir something inside me. When she got home later that night, I said nothing. I didn't ask about her day. I didn't mention Drew. She kissed me on the cheek and went to the bathroom to shower. I stood in the hallway, outside the door, listening to the water run. I was losing count of how many masks she wore. That weekend, I started organizing my files again. Not just for Ryan now. For both. I labeled a new folder, Drew. I added call logs. I added screenshots. I began writing down every mention she made of work, trying to track patterns. She said she had to work late the following Tuesday. I marked the calendar. That night, I drove by her office. Her car was there. The lights were on, but I couldn't see anything. I waited an hour. When she finally came out, she was alone. No one followed her. No one lingered. For a moment, I doubted myself. Then I saw her expression. She looked nervous. She checked her phone 3 times between the door and the car. She didn't notice me. The next day, I planted another device. This one in her car. Small, silent, hidden beneath the passenger seat. Not to track her. Just to listen. It picked up everything. Phone calls. Music. Silence. And then, on Friday, it picked up his voice. You okay? You seemed off Tuesday. Her reply. Eric's been acting weird. I think he knows something. Does he suspect us? Long pause. Then, maybe. He laughed. What's he going to do? Ask you directly? He seems passive. Her silence said more than any words could. She agreed. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I just sat outside, in the backyard, staring at the stars I couldn't see through the city glow. I thought about all the birthdays, all the anniversaries, all the quiet nights watching movies, her head on my shoulder. Were any of them real? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was this. The woman I loved didn't exist. She was a story I had told myself. And now, I was rewriting it. One truth at a time. I didn't sleep the night before I sent the file. Not because of doubt. I wasn't second-guessing my decision. The truth had hardened in me. It didn't hurt like before. It sat inside me like a stone, cold and settled. No, I didn't sleep because I was rehearsing every possible outcome. What she'd say. What she'd do. Whether she'd scream, cry, lie, beg, or walk away. It didn't matter. I was past the part where I needed her to feel anything. I just needed to be free. That morning was quiet. Emma was at school. Lindsay was in the shower. I left my phone on the kitchen counter with the folder open, ready to send. The message was short. Just a single sentence. I think it's time you saw what I know. I hit send and walked out the front door. I didn't look back. I drove for hours. No destination. Just away. Every mile felt like breathing again. Every exit sign was a small release. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove in silence with the windows down, letting the air carry away every trace of her from my skin. Around noon, I parked at a quiet lake we used to visit years ago, before marriage, before Emma. Back when things felt simple. I sat on a bench and watched the water. Still. Endless. My phone buzzed. First once. Then again. Then a stream of notifications. I didn't read them right away. I let them pile up. 15 missed calls. 11 messages. Then 2 voicemails. I listened. The first was her crying. No words. Just sobs and the sound of her trying to breathe. The second was more composed. Eric, please. Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was stupid. It was selfish. Please. Please don't do this. Please. She didn't deny it. That mattered more than anything. I drove home slowly. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Emma would be home soon. And no matter what Lindsay had done, she was still Emma's mother. I walked in to find her on the floor of the living room, knees to her chest, the TV off, her phone in her lap. Her face was red, her eyes swollen. She looked up like a child caught in the act. You read it, I said. She nodded. You heard it. You saw it. Another nod. She couldn't meet my eyes. So? Her lips trembled. I don't know where to start. Start anywhere. And she did. She told me everything. Not at once, not smoothly, but in waves. Disconnected, shame-filled sentences, half-truths slipping into full ones. It started with Ryan. That much I knew. Then came Drew, which I suspected. Then a third name. Someone from her gym. A trainer. My hands went numb. She swore it didn't mean anything. That they were just moments of weakness. That she felt lost. That she didn't know why she did it. I listened. Not because I cared to know, but because I wanted her to hear herself say it out loud. Everything she had tried so hard to hide, laid bare in her own voice. No room for denial anymore. I told her I wouldn't fight. That this wasn't about custody or property or winning. It was about clarity. And clarity had come. I told her I'd be staying at a friend's for a while. That we'd sort out the details later. That I'd always be there for Emma, but I couldn't be there for us anymore. She begged. She sobbed. She collapsed onto the floor and said she hated herself. And maybe she did. But I didn't. I didn't hate her. I just didn't believe in her anymore. And that was worse. That night, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. Some clothes. My laptop. The folder. She stood in the hallway watching me. She didn't stop me. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't have to. Some things end without a final word. They end in silence. And in silence, I walked out. What came next wasn't dramatic. No court battles. No screaming matches. Just space. Distance. Time. She tried, in the weeks that followed. Messages. Voicemails. Apologies. Letters. At first, I read them. Then I stopped. I focused on Emma. On work. On getting out of bed and building a routine that didn't include pretending. Some nights were harder than others. But with every day, the air got lighter. One morning, Emma asked me why I didn't live with Mommy anymore. I told her the truth, in the softest way I could. Sometimes grown-ups hurt each other. Not because they want to, but because they forget how to be honest. And when that happens, it's better to live apart and be kind than together and angry. She nodded. Then she hugged me. And in that moment, I felt more like myself than I had in years. Not a broken husband. Not a betrayed man. Just a father, telling the truth. And it was enough. They say the hardest part of leaving is the first night. That's not true. The hardest part is the first morning. When the sun rises and you wake up in a room that isn't yours, surrounded by silence that doesn't feel like peace yet. When you reach for a toothbrush and realize it's not in the drawer you've opened every day for years. When you go to make coffee and instinctively reach for 2 mugs, then stop. I spent the first 3 nights at Mark's place. He was an old friend I hadn't leaned on in a long time. He didn't ask for details. Just handed me a key, cleared out a drawer, and let me breathe. That kind of friendship is rare. The first morning, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Not thinking. Just adjusting to the idea that I didn't need to fake anything anymore. That the performance was over. And then I started rebuilding. Not all at once. Not with some grand gesture. But piece by piece, like sweeping up glass carefully so you don't cut your hands again. I started running again. I hadn't done that in years. Just 20 minutes a day. Then 30. Then I started sleeping better. I met Emma for lunch twice a week. We talked about school, her new books, her favorite songs. She smiled more around me now. Like she could feel the tension had lifted. I got back to work. Not just surviving the hours, but investing in them. I picked up a side project. Started putting in effort where I used to zone out. And slowly, my life began to belong to me again. Lindsay kept reaching out. Texts. Emails. A long letter I didn't open for weeks. I finally read it on a rainy Saturday. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I needed to hear her truth. She said she felt like she had been drowning for years. That she didn't know how to ask for help. That her affairs weren't about sex, but about control. That with me, she felt seen. With them, she felt in charge. It didn't make me angry. It made me sad. Because it confirmed what I had started to believe. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to feel alive. But she chose the most selfish way to do it. 3 months passed. I found a small apartment. Nothing fancy. But it had good light. And a coffee shop across the street that remembered my name by week 2. I bought new furniture. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted things no one had ever sat on but me. I took Emma shopping for a bed and let her pick the color of the walls in her room. She chose sky blue. I painted it myself. The first night she stayed over, she looked around and whispered, "I like it here." That's when I knew I'd made the right choice. Healing isn't linear. Some days I miss the familiarity of our old routines. The way her hair smelled in the morning. The way she sang when she thought no one was listening. But I didn't miss the lies. And I didn't miss the weight of pretending everything was fine. I started journaling. Something simple. Just 1 page a night. Not about her. Not about the pain. About the day. About what I noticed. What I felt. Sometimes I wrote nothing. Just sat with the pen in my hand, grateful that the silence no longer scared me. One afternoon, I got a message from Ryan. It was short. "I messed up. I'm sorry. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to say it." I didn't reply. He wasn't part of my story anymore. He was a footnote. A lesson. A name I didn't need to carry forward. People asked if I'd ever consider taking her back. The answer was always no. Not because I hated her, but because once you cross certain lines, you don't go back. You change. You grow. You learn. And sometimes, you walk away for good. And sometimes, that's the healthiest thing you can do. 6 months after I left, I stood in my kitchen making pancakes for Emma. She asked if I was happy. I told her the truth. I'm not happy all the time, but I'm proud of myself. And that feels even better. She smiled, took a bite, then asked if we could paint the living room green next. I said yes, because now our walls get to be any color we want. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt like it belonged to us again. Uncomplicated, honest, real. A year passed, not all at once. Day by day, slow, uneven. The kind of time that doesn't feel like healing until you look back and realize you're no longer bleeding. I didn't mark the anniversary of the day I left. It came and went like any other Tuesday. I made coffee, went for a run, took Emma to school, sent an email. The only difference was the quiet peace underneath it all. People asked how I moved on. The truth is, you don't move on. You move forward. You carry pieces of it with you. The betrayal, the confusion, the silence. But over time, it gets lighter. It stops defining you. It becomes something you lived through, not something you live in. I started dating again. Slowly, carefully. I didn't chase it. I didn't force anything. I focused on being whole, not on being with someone. Then I met someone. Her name was Elise. We met at a community art class Emma and I took on a whim. She was warm, patient, the kind of person who didn't try to fix broken things, just accepted them. She didn't know my full story at first, but when I told her, she didn't flinch. She listened. She asked questions, but not to judge, just to understand. With her, I never had to perform, never had to wonder if I was being lied to. And that was everything. Lindsay and I settled everything quietly. We share custody. We communicate politely, efficiently. She asked once if we could talk. Just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public. She looked different. Tired, but more grounded. Like someone who had finally seen themselves clearly. She said she was in therapy. Said she was sorry again. Not just for the cheating, but for who she became. I listened. I thanked her. I meant it. She asked if I hated her. I told her the truth. No, I don't hate you. I just can't trust you. She nodded. And that was enough. One day, Emma and I were walking through the neighborhood when we passed our old house. It had a new family in it. Fresh paint. New flowers in the garden. Emma stopped and stared at it for a while. Do you miss it? She asked. I thought for a second, then shook my head. I miss what it could have been, not what it was. She didn't ask more. Just took my hand and kept walking. Sometimes I think about the version of me that didn't find the evidence. That kept pretending. That kept loving someone who was never really there. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. Because the moment I saw the truth, I started becoming someone else. Not harder, not colder, just more awake. There is no perfect ending to a story like this. There's no grand revenge, no dramatic confrontation, no final kiss-off line. Just life, real life, where people make mistakes, where people break hearts, where sometimes you lose what you thought was forever and realize you're better without it, where you let go and grow and breathe and keep going, not because you're over it, but because you deserve more than what broke you. And in that quiet knowledge, and that slow, steady reclaiming of your life, you win. The man she betrayed no longer exists, but the man who walked out of that house. He's someone I'm proud to be. And that, in the end, is the real story. Not of what she did, but of who I became.